Hey now, this is Nash Rockett and the Almost Famous Podcast. Before we get started today, I'd like to ask if you would be so kind to subscribe to this channel. Just hit the red button below the window. Our goal this month is 300 subscribers. We're about 75 away from that. I'd appreciate your help. So please subscribe and share this with your friends. A small disclaimer here. This is a long one this week. The show runs about 55 minutes and it's audio only. You're going to love Juliette Watt. She is one of, if not the most interesting persons I've ever known. So grab yourself a beverage, sit back, and listen to her amazing story.
You're listening to Nash Rockett and the Almost Famous Podcast.
As you know, if you listen or watch this podcast, it's been a year. I'm coming up on my year anniversary here. You will know that the whole point of this Almost Famous Podcast and YouTube channel is so that I can get famous again, or semi-famous again. You hush over there. So that I can get on Dancing with the Stars and dance with Whitney Carson. But that's a whole nother story. We'll talk about that later. Our guest today, she's a speaker, she's an author, she's a coach. This woman, you know, has done more in her lifetime. Now, I've known a lot of people. I've read about a lot of people. But this woman has done more in her life than anyone I've ever known or even read about. Welcome to the Almost Famous Podcast, Juliette Watt, my ladies and gentlemen. Juliette Watt.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was an intro. I just sat up in my chair a little more.
Hey, I detect an accent. You're not from around here, are you?
No, sir.
Where are you from, girl?
I'm from England. I'm from London. I've been here 37 years.
No.
But, you know, it's a handy accent to have. Every now and again, it comes in useful.
Well, it's a conversation starter, if nothing else, right?
Indeed.
You sound like you should be on Downton Abbey, you see. Hello there.
No, I'm not quite that much. No. If you listen to the royal family, you'll hear that I'm very far away from that.
So your accent is it would be considered posh, though, don't you think?
No, not at all. It's from
What?
London. It's a straight up London accent. Posh is basically the royal family or Downton Abbey, the way all of those people speak. It's a snobbery thing. It's not real. It's just England's a very class conscious country. So if you're upper class, that's how you're supposed to speak. And it sort of decomposes as you go down to being homeless. You know.
I didn't realize that.
Right.
So
yeah.
It starts here, my darling.
Yeah.
And then it
Yes, darling.
goes down a bit right here, doesn't it?
Yeah, not quite.
Not quite? Okay.
And that's more Oliver Twist, but we'll get into that one day.
Okay. All right. So Juliette Watt and I have known each other. Do you remember where we met, Juliette?
Yes.
Okay. You remember the night we met, my darling?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to tell my version of it, and then you tell me
All right.
your version of it. Okay.
Okey-dokey.
I am singing at the Playboy Club the last year it was in existence in New York City. And I'm singing, and I do my stupid little set, and all of a sudden, this crazy lady in a full-length rabbit fur coat comes running up to me and says, "Oh, my darling, I would just adore you. Come on, we're going to a party. I have a car waiting." Am I making that up or not?
there's some extra bits, but go ahead. So far, you're sort of correct.
So Juliette indeed had a car waiting, and we jump in this limousine, and we go way up on the east side, which is the really posh part of town. We end up going to, have you ever heard of De Beers Diamonds? Okay, we go up to De Beers' penthouse apartment, about 90,000 floors straight up. Had to take 14 elevators to get there. And we walk into this place, and it's De Beers' divorce party. Am I lying, Juliette Watt?
No, you're not. That's exactly what it was.
Now, I can't remember whether it was his place or his wife's place who was actually getting the divorce, who, by the way, was a pickled herring heiress. Do you recall that little tidbit?
Yes.
Okay. I'll let you take it over from there. Go.
I was doing my 1 month residency at the Playboy Club in New York City in their cabaret room.
The Lanny Kazan room.
And it was called Laney's Room, and we did 4 shows a night, which was insane because our last show was at 1 o'clock in the morning to the dredges of conventioneers and whomever they'd managed to scrape up for the evening to sit beside them. It was sad, very sad. And anyway, so on Sundays, I believe, the club was actually closed. The nightclub was closed, and they ran it was an open mic.
Yes.
I think talent open mic night.
Yes.
Day. And I didn't have any friends, and I didn't know anybody there. So I thought I'd sit in and see, what was happening. And this young man comes out onto the stage and plays this song by Mr. Harry Chapin, Better Place to Be. I thought I'd die. Better Place to Be. And I thought I'd actually died and gone to heaven because I know. I mean, you did it so well. You did it so movingly. And the song itself is extraordinary if anybody even remembers Harry Chapin.
Right.
So I actually, it wasn't real fur. It was faux. It was a white faux rabbit. It was faux rabbit.
So
and it wasn't full length.
It was a faux rabbit. Okay.
It was faux to my knees. And extremely high heel shoes, which I look at now and I'm nauseous because I live in cowboy boots. So that, and then off we go. And don't ask me how I knew these people. I think there was something to do with the club. I think I met them there. Who knows? And we get to this building and this party, and I do believe there were substances there that should not have been there. And,
I recall very distinctly once we get to that penthouse apartment.
Yeah.
Asking you, turning you and kind of whispering, because I'd only been there about a year, and I think you'd been there about a week or something like that.
Yeah.
And I turned sheepishly to you and I said, Juliette, why do they have all these bowls of sugar on the tables laying around? And that's when you looked at me. And I felt like the hick that I truly was.
No. I think we were both somewhat alarmed, and I don't believe we stayed that long, but I think we did stay for a while to kind of observe. Excuse me, and then we left. And then I have to mention that you did a very, very kind thing, because that was the month of November, and I was freshly in this country, and I kind of knew of Thanksgiving, but it didn't really register with me because I didn't really understand what the holiday was. Finding out later it's when you kicked us all out, which I find hilarious. But there I was in my extremely small room in the Barbizon Hotel for Women.
Oh my God, that's right.
Remember that?
Yeah, I do.
On Lexington Avenue, and I want to say 66 or somewhere around there. Yeah. And it was, I think, the morning of Thanksgiving, maybe, or the day or the evening before, at some point. Right, it was on the day, and you said to me, "Do you realize what you called me?" And you said, "Do you realize what day it is?" And I said, "No." "What are you doing?" You said, and I said, "I'm just sitting here." And you said, "Okay, I'm coming to get you. It's Thanksgiving. Have you any idea what that is?" And I said, "Kind of, sort of." So you came and got me, and we went to Brooklyn, to where you lived,
Right.
and had the most wonderful day. And I will remember you sang the entire score of Sweeney Todd with all the lyrics and all the parts. And you remember?
I do.
You did Mrs. Lovett brilliantly. And then when I finally moved there, I was just telling this to my hubby the other day. When I finally moved there, you and I second acted Sweeney Todd on Broadway 37 times.
Was it that many? Yeah. Okay. Well.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember that? We used to just slide in.
Now we just have to explain, if you've not lived in New York, I'm sure they probably don't do that anymore, but back
hell no.
Back in those days, what would happen, the only way a starving actor or singer or somebody in show business could see a Broadway show was to do what's called second act it. And what would happen is you would just kind of hang around a theater that was showing a show that you wanted to see. And when they had intermission, people would come out and smoke or whatever. And then they would blink the lights and you would file back in and go find a seat that wasn't taken. And that's how I saw every show for the entire 3-4 years that I was there. That's how I never knew what happened in the first act of any show.
But also, we got to know the ushers there, and we would often, when it was sold out, we would be able to stand in the back. Remember?
Sure. Yes. Yeah, I do. Okay.
You can't.
Go ahead.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Do that anymore. You can't do that anymore. Just to let you know.
I wouldn't think so. Okay. So I brought all of that up to point out that I know Juliette as a singer, because that's how we met. And I recall that at the point, then I learned that she was not only a singer, but a Playboy bunny. And when I heard that bit, I really got my interest piqued. And then by the time my interest was piqued, she had met and fallen in love with some Broadway star and ran off with him. So I was just SOL, just out of luck completely. Juliette is a speaker and an author and a coach. And what she does, she has framed her life in such an interesting way, and not surprisingly, but interesting, that she has framed it in the vernacular of a Broadway play, of all things. You have a first act, you have a second act, and you have a third act. And she has all along her career reinvented herself from one thing to the next. Now, I'm not talking about just, I'm bored, I think I'll go do something else. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about literally reinventing who she is, what she does, and what she's going after. Okay, I'm just going to read you a list of the things that Juliette has accomplished. Okay, I told you she was a Playboy bunny. She was a Playboy bunny. She was a dealer in a casino and a Playboy bunny. And she was also a very accomplished singer, cabaret singer. And then she was an Emmy Award-winning soap opera writer. She then went on, she won a couple of Writers Guild Awards, Daytime Emmy. She then decided she wanted to become a pilot. No, au contraire. She wanted to become a master instructor pilot, which she did. And then she wanted to become a horse whisperer, which she is. So, I'm just worn out talking about how awesome you are, and it's really starting to annoy me, while the rest of us mere mortals just kind of struggle with making a sandwich for lunch. Okay, so is any of that fabricated? Did I make any of that up? Is it all true?
No. It's all absolutely true. The horse whisperer thing it's a phrase. I'm just going to clarify that, because there's no such thing. We don't whisper to horses. It's really getting involved with them and understanding what they are. I write, I compete, I do all of that, but I've also made it my kind of mission to really understand these animals and be able to work with them on their language, in their mind, not totally turning them into a human, anthropomorphic version whereby you say things like, well, he's doing it on purpose. People do it with dogs all the time, or he doesn't like me, or my pony loves me. Those things don't apply to horses. Horses don't dislike or like you. They respect you. You're their leader or you're not. And if you look at a herd, there's so much to learn from them because they're such pure animals. So by learning about horses and by riding them and by working with them kindly, not like they used to do back in the day, you start to understand more about yourself. Horses are used in therapy a lot, in rehabilitation, in prison rehabilitation, the prisoners that train the Mustangs. And I have a wild Mustang here right now who is about as wild as grandma. This horse is amazing. He came to me in total fear and terror of humans, and he'd never seen a human in 23, 24 years, and suddenly was thrust into human world and stuck in a pen, and the poor darling just shut down. So that's what I do. I constantly learn about them so I can learn more about myself and just the purity of them.
Yes.
It's extraordinary. So
okay. Let's back up for a second.
Horse Whisperer was a movie thing.
I'm still going to call you a horse whisperer. I don't care what you say. So let's go back. So by the time you and I had met at the Playboy Club that fateful night, where we went to the place where they had all the bowls of sugar with spoons in them, it was weird. I had already done my first soap opera stint on
Guiding Light.
One Light to Live. Guiding Light.
You did One Light. That's right.
Yeah, that was my first one. And so when you went off and married some Broadway star, we lost contact for a short little bit. And then the next thing I knew, you were an award-winning soap opera writer. And I'm going, what? Are there two Juliettes that I'm confusing? No, it was you. How did you end up going from cabaret singer to who didn't know the first thing about Thanksgiving? To being a soap opera writer. How did that happen?
The cabaret scene, so to speak, was dying rapidly. Those wonderful places where you as an unknown person could go and sing. I mean, I would open for people like, I don't know, Don Rickles in Playboy in Great Gorge. I mean, I would go and open for those kind of guys.
Right.
And finally, that cabaret life, where you could go and sing, get paid, and be an unknown, died. All the Playboy clubs shut down. I mean, so basically, my income died and my profession died, which was fine. Mm-hmm. I was good with that. It working all night every night was too much. But then I got married.
Right.
And I sort of didn't have to work, which wasn't that great a thing because I always believe you need to have a purpose. You need to be going somewhere.
Yep.
If you're not, you're just sitting.
Mm-hmm.
So I always loved writing. It's always been something that I think I've been good at. So I started scribbling, and I decided I was going to write a play or two or three. And I did. I found topics that interested me, like the Berlin Wall. I wrote a play about the Berlin Wall. I wrote a play about something else. And so I had all this work and had a couple of readings with it. And, it was sort of one of those things it's really hard to get a play on in New York. So then the gentleman I was married to decided that we weren't going to be married anymore. So he left.
I'm sorry.
He left.
I'm sorry. I'm not laughing at the circumstance. I'm laughing at the way you decided to frame it.
Yes. Well, he didn't want to be married anymore to me.
I got you.
Yes. Nice guy. Just and it was really okay. We're best of friends today, which is terrific. Mm-hmm. So off he went with the new love of his life, which was again fine, but here I was stuck. I had nothing. I really had no credits. I had no credentials. I had no skills. I had nothing. So I was sitting in my apartment, miserable. And an apartment, by the way, I now could not really pay for.
Right.
And everybody was telling me, get a roommate, move out, do this. I don't want a roommate. I said, I was like 40 years old. And I said, no, I'm too old for roommates. I don't like people. And that's going to end there, you know?
Yeah.
And they said, well, anyway, I was watching the TV and I had a good friend, a very dear friend that was on All My Children. And I was watching him and I suddenly thought, I could write this. This is just like chit chat gossip. Mm-hmm. Hell, I could write this.
Right.
So I took my plays and marched myself down to ABC television, which back in those days had an actual writer's program.
Right.
Dropped off a play, which I thought was kind of soapy. It wasn't the Berlin Wall, for God's sake.
Right.
And then proceeded for the next year to absolutely determine myself to get this job. I was the last person that you would ever expect to be hired. They wanted playwrights. They wanted people with cred. They wanted people who'd maybe written a movie or two. They wanted people with experience. I had none. I'd never had anything produced anywhere. And I did sample script after sample script. I got to know people in the writer's development department, and it was a year. And the day I got the job, I had $50 left to my name.
Wow.
And and it was for One Life to Live, to be a script writer.
Right.
And that's how I got it, out of basically saying, I'm not going to go down. I am not going to be like every other wife that's left and fall into a heap of nothing. I will turn this into an opportunity that I would not have had he not left. I'm deeply grateful to him because it forced me. And I said, I need to earn a lot of money, because in those days the mortgage was pretty high. The interest rates were ridiculous. I said, I have to earn 6 figures. I've got to. And everybody laughed at me. They said, well, how are you going to do that? I said, watch something. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get this soap opera writing job. And it was hard because that whole year was great pain. I was teaching exercise. I was teaching a ballet stretch class that I was working maybe 12 hours a day, and saving the money by walking from the Upper West Side down to the Village and back every day. It was rough, but that's, in my opinion, kind of, if you're going to do something that radical and that impossible, because it was, when they hired me, they told me I would be the last person they would ever hire, and they did so because my work was decent. And so that's how that happened.
Okay, so I'm just sitting here listening to the story.
Oh, and then I got nominated, so that helped.
Well, hang on just a second. So, and I'm thinking, how many millions of women, just in this country, can relate to your story in terms of being thrust into that situation?
Oh.
I mean, there has to be millions, right?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you get nominated, you win a couple of awards, a couple of thousand awards. I don't know. How many awards did you win? You want to brag about that a little bit?
I got nominated for an Emmy. I did not win an Emmy. I got nominated for an Emmy. They used my script as the submission, because there was 5 script writers, one for each day of the week. And basically, they put my script in for the nomination and one other. The producer of One Life to Live at the time was I'm not going to say her name, but she was an evil woman, but she was very, very talented, and she took that show out of that soap realm into the future, basically. I think we were one of the first shows to actually have a gay storyline, which was extraordinary. So then I moved over to a show called Loving, which was produced by my darling dear friend Haiti Granger, who was brilliant, and I got nominated for 2 Writers Guild Awards, and they did use my scripts in that, and I won those, and they hang on my wall, and I dust them a couple of times a month.
Okay, all right. Let's move the timeline forward, because we can only have 24 hours to do this episode. So
I understand.
Yeah. So the next thing is you decided to go from. By the way, we are talking with author and coach and public speaker Juliette Watt, and she is just an amazing person to hear her story. So you go from being a soap opera writer, an award-winning soap opera writer, and you decide that you're going to be a pilot.
Yeah.
The hell?
That was, yeah. Well, so here's that deal.
Yeah.
So my second Writers Guild Award. By then they had fired my producer, the woman that hired me, and everything was changing. And the people that took over, it's like the army it's like the soldiers when the new general comes in and he changes the team.
Sure.
So that was about to happen. And my script, as I said, got put forward and it won. And the people that came up to actually get the award were the people that hadn't been on the show at all when we'd done that. And so I caused the scene.
No.
Yes.
Not you.
And all these soap opera writers who'd been in 100 years said their thank yous and whatnot. And I got mad because they didn't even know that myself and the producer had put together the storyline, and it just got. So Barbara Walters is sitting in the first row. She's hosting this award ceremony. Okay, it was the Writers Guild Award. She's sitting in the front row and she's introducing everybody. So they all go off the stage, and I stay there. And Barbara Walters gets out of her seat, and I said, "I'm not done." And she went, okay. And she sits back in her seat, and there is a deathly hush. And there's these round tables. There's CBS, there's ABC, there's NBC. All their tables were there, and it was dead silent. And I just said, I need to correct the remiss of this award as far as who's responsible. I talked about Haiti. I said what an extraordinary producer she'd been, and how this was her doing, her creation, this storyline that had won us this very prestigious award. And there was also dead silence. And I knew I was going to get fired within days after that. And
Right.
I was. I'd done the unthinkable, and I was ready for it, because when I came off the stage, nobody looked at me. I went straight to the phone and I called her and I told her, and she said, they're going to fire you. And I said, that's okay. I did the right thing. And so now I'm out of work. And now I'm married to Jason, my current husband, who married somebody with a 6-figure salary and going to super duper parties at Tavern on the Green. Ended, over. It was over. So we then moved to New Jersey. But on our honeymoon, we went to Jamaica, and I'm lying on the beach and I look at these little bitty airplanes flying over, and I thought, I think I'll do that next. So when we get back to New Jersey, I go down to the local airport. And I said, I would like to become a master pilot and a master instructor. And the young 22-year-old instructor looked at me and he said, all right, not a problem.
Had you ever had any flying lessons at all?
No.
Okay.
Not at all. No, never in my life. I've been up in an airplane, and I've been up in a small airplane.
Right.
But I didn't care for it much because it felt like a lawnmower with wings. I mean, it really felt, frail. But no, and I made it my mission. In 2 years, I would be a master pilot and I would be an instructor. Well, I wasn't a master pilot because you need hours for that, but I think I got close to being very respectable. I have 5,000 hours, and I am an ATP, which is the highest rating you can get. So I did that.
You ended up working for Best Friends, which is probably the most prestigious animal rescue group in the country.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Tell us how
yes,
that
it
happened.
is, absolutely. Again, 9/11 happened. I had now been working at the flight school in Jersey, and 9/11 happened, and it affected the aviation community. Because for some reason, I don't know why, but they thought us with little airplanes were a great threat. And so they grounded us for a while. And also then everybody decided that flying was much too dangerous because, people would drive you into buildings. So all our business disappeared. All of our flight instructors, we lost all our students. And I said, well, I think it might be soon time to move along a little bit here because New York changed. You know what happened. The whole place changed.
Yep.
And we had been on vacation. We went on vacation when in trouble, go on holiday, you know. We went to visit best friends in Utah, and you volunteer there. It's a massively wonderful place. We were volunteering in the dog town, and I was scooping poop in a run. Scooping poop in a run. And I suddenly had this overwhelming feeling, we must live here. And we must do this now. We must start to give back. It's time to give back. And animals are very precious to me. Animals stand way above humans to me. It's just my own personal thing. The plight of dogs in this country, and horses and cats, is dire. And this place is amazing. And I said, I want to come here and I want to be of service to these animals. And bless his heart, Jason went, well, because he had a very successful career as a voiceover artist.
Right.
And I was basically saying, let's just drop everything and come and live in Utah, southern Utah, in a town called Kanab, which is really small. So we did that, and I took my airplane with me, and it just so happened that Hurricane Katrina hit a couple years later, and I was using my airplane to fly animals all over the place. Based in New Orleans, just outside of New Orleans. We were based in a little place, a rescue facility, and I spent most of my time flying animals to other rescue organizations, because I think a lot of people know this. The tragedy of Katrina was that all the animals left behind, less than 5% were actually claimed by their owners, and 250,000 animals were left behind.
Wow.
We at Best Friends had 6,000 of those animals come through our facility.
So let me get this straight. So you would fly in and out of Utah to New Orleans.
No. I actually based myself down in New Orleans. Every now and again I would come back to Utah with some animals that needed to be back there. But most of the time I was down there. We had a medical facility and everything helping us out in New Orleans. But I would fly to different rescue organizations that would take some of these animals.
So you would rescue the animals in New Orleans and take them around the country to various places.
Correct.
I would take in your little plane.
Yes, I can get 25 rabbits in my airplane. I can get 15 cats. Yeah. Depending on the size of the dog, I can get quite a few dogs.
A couple of mastiffs.
Yeah, but I can get quite a few dogs.
Yeah.
I took a family of tarantula spiders to Mobile, Alabama.
What?
Yeah, there's tarantula rescue. There is a tarantula rescue.
I may have to draw the line at tarantulas. I'm sorry.
People have them as pets.
I understand that, but I don't want to be flying around and if 17,000 feet there's a tarantula walking up my leg. Come on, man.
No, they were in a little cage. I mean, they were secured.
Okay, so I'm sitting in Arizona. I was at the time.
Yes.
And I'm sitting here trying to figure out what my next step was. And I'm watching the TV, and I'm having a shot of tequila probably, and having a taco and chips.
You had a blue drink.
And perhaps even a blue drink. I reserved those for you, though, when you would come visit. Mm-hmm. And I'm watching television, and I'm going, and I hear this accent on TV, and I'm not paying a whole lot of attention. I said, that sounds like Juliette. That's weird. And then I look around, and I'm going, damn, that is Juliette. And you're on some news show talking about how you're rescuing animals from the Hurricane Katrina disaster.
Was that Anderson Cooper?
I believe it was.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Because I had lost track of you for a long time, 10 years or so. And
because you were a disc jockey, weren't you, in Nebraska?
Yeah.
And then you vanished.
Yeah, and then I went back. Then I went to Arizona, and so
that's right.
Yeah, and I wasn't a disc jockey, just so you know. I was a morning radio personality. Thank you very much.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Don't throw me down there
I'm
with the
sorry.
riffraff.
Okay.
So, okay, you're wearing me out here, and I'm feeling very inadequate to even be talking to you. So, we're speaking with speaker, author, and coach Juliette Watt. Juliette Watt. I always want to put an S on the end of that. I don't know why.
Yeah, don't. Yeah, I don't know why people.
Yeah, well, it's offensive to the Watts. Okay, so Juliette is flying around, and then the next contact I have with Juliette, I'm watching the news again, and there's this story about an airline, a plane that crashes. It does a crash landing. And and I'm going, and they have it, and I think it was in Las Vegas, I think, and
it was a controlled emergency landing.
And it looked like a crash landing to me, Juliette. Anyway, so I'm sitting here going, I said, look, that looks like Juliette's plane, and
It was Las Vegas.
Yeah, and I'm going because I had recognized your plane because through subsequent conversations we had, you told me about your plane, and it was a Mooney, and has, those Mooney planes have their tail on backwards. I'm surprised that they even stay in the air. So anyway, I recognized the particular plane that was doing a crash landing because of that particular tail. I said, look, that's Juliette. That looks like Juliette's plane. And then sure enough, we crash land, everybody's applauding. And here comes Juliette climbing out of the plane. I'm going, my God, what is going on with this woman? Am I making that up?
Yeah. No, you're not. The mechanic had misrigged my gear, my wheels, and they wouldn't work anymore. And so I asked the tower if I could come in and land again because I wasn't sure whether my wheels were working, whether they were up or down. Tower said they were down, but I didn't know if they were down and locked. I had a green light, which signifies down and locked, but I had a feeling they weren't locked. And one of them was locked, and two of them were not. So the one that was locked was on the right-hand side, and the nose wheel and the left-hand wheel was not. And that was just being super calm, being really aware of your training and just going. Tower said, do you want foam? I said, absolutely not, because I would rather, and I remember my instructor saying, hey, when it goes bad, land as if you were landing normally, which I did. And the problem was, though, hitting the ground like that, you've got no wheels, and you can't direct anything. Nothing works. You've got no steering, nothing. Right. So I just let the airplane spin on the runway until we went into the sand. And I got out, and I was really calm until I took my purse. I made sure I had my purse. And I got out and stood in the sand, looked at my poor darling airplane that looked like a beached whale. And my knees gave out, and I just sank to the ground because I think that was kind of probably delayed shock. And then I look up to see what I thought were the Blues Brothers, and it was two sets of legs belonging to the FAA who wanted to chat. And
they wanted to chat, you say?
Yeah. And I said, I can't. You never talk to them when something immediately. You always wait.
Right.
And so I said, I'm in shock. Please go over there and wait.
Now, did you get into trouble for that or what?
No, I actually got a commendation from the FAA at excellent pilot, excellent airmanship, because of the way I landed, because I was very, very careful. Once I knew I had a serious problem, every word that comes out of your mouth then to the tower is recorded. So I made sure I went by the book, letter for letter. And they reviewed my conversation with the tower. They got witnesses that witnessed the landing, and they gave me a commendation for airmanship and safety as to how I'd done it. So, yeah, it was the opposite, actually.
Cabaret singer, Playboy bunny, award-winning soap opera writer, master instructor, and emergency plane landing survivor with accommodations. Is that where we are at this point?
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah.
I really feel so inadequate. I really do.
Don't.
So the next thing here, and let's speed this along because I want to get to your whole coaching thing and how you can help people. I think this long introduction is important so that people can kind of get an idea of what you've done all along the way that presents a credential, if not on paper, at least spiritually and in somebody's mind about how you can help them move from one spot to another. Now we touched briefly on the horse thing, and so you decided to leave best friends, and you went on to take that great work toward horses, and of course you can't really do that unless you have a ranch, right, Juliette?
Yeah. Well, you want horses around you. Yeah, I mean a lot of people keep their horses in other places and do just as well, but it's really helpful if they're right here at home with you. You know.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, I can make it easy for you now to get to the actual point, which I know we want to be able to reach out and help some people who are listening to this probably going, that's not me. It is everybody, because what happens after that is I'm older. I'm older now, and my past is creeping towards me. Very briefly, I had a mother that was pretty awful, and I started to feel things that weren't me. I started to feel depressed. I felt anxious, and I didn't understand why. And I'd looked after my mother for the better part of 40 to 50 years, not because she was ill, but because she was so darn needy and so clutchy and sucked the life out of me. I mean, I put 6,000 miles between us, and it didn't matter. I used to do her grocery shopping every Sunday, as probably you heard on the talk, and from America to a grocery store just down the road from her. It is crazy. And I started to have these really bad feelings. I started not sleeping, and somebody had said to me, had talked about compassion fatigue when I'd been talking about PTSD with soldiers. So I started to do a little research on it and realized it was really close to home. So I called the guy who had pretty much created this expression of compassion fatigue, and talked to him about myself. And he was a very eminent professor from Louisiana. And he said, well, you have it. And you said you also have PTSD from your mother. And I said, how is that possible? I'm not a soldier. I'm not a firefighter. You know, I don't do that. I don't look after people. And I then realized, and as you were saying earlier, the millions and millions of people out there, both men and women, that are suffering from this compassion fatigue and don't know it. And basically the explanation of it is the emotional and physical burden of caring for others in distress. And that is the general title of it. But it can be in the lack of care for yourself as you've taken care of somebody else who's not ill, but who's taken over your life. And so that's where we start to get down to the fact that I did a TED talk on this topic, and I now have people call me going, everything you said, I feel, and I don't know why. And so that's where I am right now, is I'm trying to help people get through life who are all desperately unhappy and they don't know why, you know? They've got nothing to... Yeah.
Let me just comment here, just insert this, that you can see her TED Talk. Just search Juliette Watt TED Talk on YouTube, and you can find that. And it's on her website as well, which is JulietteWatt.com. Juliette with 2 T's and an E. Not like Billy Shakespeare spelled it. She just had to be different and more complicated, because that's the kind of chick she is. Anyway, so compassion fatigue. So that's a thing. That is not something that you developed. That is something that the science community developed. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's actually Professor Charles Figley at Tulane University in Louisiana. Mm-hmm. He was studying PTSD patients, basically soldiers, people that had come back from wars and that were in a terrible state. And he then started to observe the caregivers of these soldiers, of these people with PTSD, and how the caregivers were taking on the symptoms of PTSD, but not having been through it. And it was because they were literally absorbing the pain that they were looking after every day. That's about the simplest way I can put it. That also refers to nurses. Anyone who deals with trauma on a daily basis, eventually it's going to get to you and in you. Nurses, firefighters, paramedics, all these people that deal with crisis. My trauma that got into me was looking after my crazy, very, very mentally ill mother, whom I didn't know was mentally ill, because you didn't in those. So compassion fatigue is trauma. It is buried trauma, and it can also encompass grief as well.
And what are the symptoms of that?
A lack of self, a constant feeling of nothing's right. You get irritable really quickly. You don't find you have enough time in the day to do everything. You start really not to look after yourself. Maybe you let yourself go. You let yourself gain weight. Your life becomes in the hands of everybody else. You are spending your entire life trying to please everybody, trying to be what everybody wants you to be.
And you lose yourself. You lose yourself in the process.
You lose yourself completely. Any dreams you had, any career you wanted to do gets pushed aside because you have to be the one who takes care of everybody. And it's usually women. You know, husband goes to work, kids are at home. She's got to do that. She's got to do the band practice, this practice, the that practice, the laundry, the cooking, the cleaning. And then husband comes home at the end of the day and expects his time and his whole needs. And it's awful. I mean, you lose yourself completely. And that can go on for 10, 20, 30 years. It can go on your whole life. You can die feeling that you really did nothing. And that is awful. And the problem is that to get out of that takes great courage and pain.
Wow. Juliette Watt, speaker, author, and coach. And you can get a hold of her if you would like to speak to her, get some coaching from her, or just, as she says, a nice chat, you see.
And just let me mention the first session that I have with everybody is 30 minutes and it's free, just so that we know if I can help them and how we are together. So that first 30-minute session of coaching is free.
I would imagine that rapport is very important.
Yeah.
Right? Between the two.
Yes.
Yeah, I would think so. That's a great idea.
Well, you have to want to change. Then you have to want to have the courage that it's going to take. You know, it's not easy. You're going to have to maybe walk out of your life. It can be that drastic. I have a lady right now who has basically disowned her entire family because they were dragging her down into the dirt with all their drama and their problems. She walked away from them just because she said, I'm more important than what they're doing to me.
Let me ask you this. So you didn't have some very nice things to say about your mom. To say the least. How, first of all, is she still alive?
No, she died in 2014.
Okay, so she's been gone 5 years. Did she know how you felt about her at that time?
She didn't care.
Interesting.
She didn't care. All she wanted was my time and my life. And everything was for her needs, what she needed, what she was suffering. If I ever said anything about myself, she would put it down. She would degrade me. Even when she knew I was a pilot, she put that down. So I just kind of shut down, really. I didn't share anything with her. I became an efficient liar. I just finished my book on it. As I was writing it, I was realizing what kind of life I allowed myself to have. But, when you're young, you don't know. You have no idea. I was terrified of her, absolutely terrified.
Wow.
So when she died, I thought I would break free and have this wonderful sense of relief. And it's like all the poison has come to the surface since she died. I don't have that responsibility anymore. So everything I've suppressed feeling is now coming out. And it's been very, very difficult.
Wow. Well, it's good that you're turning all that negative energy into something, which is a nice thing on your website. It says, are you trapped in a negative work or personal situation? Are you trying constantly to keep things positive in your workplace? Do you not know who you are anymore?
Yeah.
I mean, all of us can identify with that, right? Except the last one. You realize you haven't laughed in weeks. Hell, I laugh every 90 seconds. I just find things amusing. Yeah. See, I just did it.
Well, you have really you've risen from the ashes for sure. And I think you should be tremendously proud of yourself, because that ability to laugh that you have, that ability to go through what you've been through and to come out this end where you're at now, it takes tremendous strength. Because there were some times there, I remember, where it was seriously not good. And you came out of that. You could have gone in a completely different direction. Yeah. There's an up. And I think you should be extremely proud of yourself.
Well, I am. A lot of that, in fairness, was some physical illnesses that I had that I wasn't aware of, and I was too stubborn and broke at the time to go check them out. But and that weighs on you mentally as well. You just go, what the hell,
yeah.
Wow. What an amazing, lovely person you are.
Thank you.
And I mean that. I mean, we've had a long, long relationship, and I treasure the times that we had together and still treasure you. And I'm so happy to see what you're doing. I've always been impressed with you. There was always the next thing with you. And it was never surprising. It was never surprising. And there's always, it would be remiss of me if I didn't say, okay, well, let's just kind of look forward here. What is next for you? Is this where you stop doing what you're doing? I don't think so. I think that's part of your DNA, this reinvention, to making yourself, and I don't think better. I don't think that's the word. You're just fulfilling yourself, right? That's what. That's what reinvention is. That's what reinvention is, right?
Well, yeah, you have to keep doing it. Otherwise, what do? Sit down, and you can't sit down. I mean, when I ride a horse now and I get off, it hurts the next morning. My body feels it. When we get to the age we're at, it's no fun. I mean, I think the plan from upstairs was seriously misconceived past 50. I don't understand why there wasn't a better plan, but nevertheless. My mission now is to get my book published, get it out there, and hopefully that book will help people, but it'll also entertain them, and understand that I'm no different to anybody else. I really am not. Anybody can do anything if they really, really want to. When I got the TED Talk, I'm again a completely unlikely person to get a TED Talk. I have nothing. I'm not a professor. I haven't done something important. I haven't done anything of Nobel Peace Prize worth, nothing. And I had one little message, and it resonated with the people in Fargo. And I am so proud of that talk, because it's one of my life's achievements. And to get one is very, very difficult. Thousands of people apply. So that was that mission. Now the next mission is the book.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We're talking with Juliette Watt, speaker, author, coach. If you are trapped in a negative work or personal situation, and I'm just going to read right from her website here, are you constantly trying to keep things positive in your workplace? You don't know who you are anymore. You experience an unusually strong reaction to a minor event, which feels traumatic to you. Man, I used to be that way. I can't tell you how many things I've thrown through the wall from across the room because I bumped my knee.
I hear you. Yes.
If you're losing compassion for some people while becoming over-involved with others, you've stopped sleeping, or if you do sleep, you wake up with the awful feeling of dread. Yeah. I tell you, you might want to look Juliette's way, because she's been through a lot, and I don't mean endured a lot. I mean, she's not only endured it, but overcome it and used it as a blessing. And that's what I think we have to learn to do, is use the things that affect us negatively as a blessing. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the hardest, it's the easiest thing to say, and the hardest thing to do is to take an adverse reaction and make it work as a positive learning for you. It sounds so darn cheesy, and it is. I mean, it's so bloody hard. But when you do it, when you take something that has been like my husband leaving me, and really my life looking pretty darn awful, and me being in a state of grief that I was useless, I decided, all right, what am I going to do? I am going to do something magnificent. And that's very hard, because you don't feel magnificent. You know what I'm saying? You
Right.
just don't feel. You don't.
Yeah.
You're tired. You're crying. You're miserable. You've just got to force yourself to put one foot in front of the other. You know, it's literally one day at a time, and it will be uncomfortable. It will feel like shit. And if you go through it, I call it jumping in the dragon's mouth. If you go through it and come out the other side, you will feel magnificent. And you will look back and go, gosh, I am so glad my husband left me. I thank him to this day. When I talk to him, I go, you know what? You did the best thing for me, and I'm so grateful. And gratitude is huge there. Be grateful for something terrible happening, because granted, if you are, something wonderful has to happen after it. It's the law of the universe.
Juliette Watt, JulietteWatt.com, TEDx speaker, author, coach. If you think you need some help, she gives you a consultation. It's absolutely free. And you can contact her through her website. Again, JulietteWatt.com.
Once again, I wish to thank you for listening and watching the Almost Famous podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and share. Say your prayers, share your toys. If you make a mess, clean it up. See ya next time.